Good. All right. So welcome, everybody. Thank y'all for coming. Like most of the sessions that we do in the Smart Room, we are recording. If you ever see the blue on these little microphones in here, that means that we're recording this session. If it's red, it means we're not. So I'm going to post this on the Professional Development Blackboard site after we're done. We are live streaming into Harnett and into Pittsburgh. So we do have some people on the other campuses. And if anyone wanted to watch remotely, it's being offered on the CCCC Life Science website. I don't know if it do anyone any good unless they already took the assessment and just couldn't be here, but that is an option. So just remember everything that you say. If you're whispering to your neighbor, sometimes I can hear these little microphones. I can edit, but just so that everyone knows that is what we do in here. And we're fortunate that we have Jessica Rogers, who is Mbti certified. I've taken the assessment quite a few times, but I've never actually been trained to do the assessment. So I'm fortunate that we have somebody in-house that can do this, and we're not having to pay a trainer to come in and give us a full day worth of Mbti. But Jessica has been fortunate that she's done this. This is the second time, and every time I've heard great news. So I think that we've already gotten our money out of the college. But Jessica, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask when she is ready for those. And anybody on the other campuses, if you have questions, just raise your hand, and I'll let Jessica know that there's a question coming in from the other campuses. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Jessica as she gets started.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy that you all decided to spend basically most of your afternoon with me. I do apologize that it's so lengthy. I was just sharing that this is typically a 4-hour training that we've condensed down to 2.5, and I might even have gotten it right at 2. So please forgive me if it seems like I'm rushing. I just want to make sure you get the bulk of the meat of the information, because kind of the last 2 hours are mainly activity and putting your type preferences into play. So for those of you that are on our other campuses, I just want to say I apologize you don't have your physical copy, but I do have it with me. You will receive it in our office mail, and I'm going to also send you an email copy of your results. So I do apologize you don't have it. And anything I pass out today, you will receive in your inner office mail envelope. So again, I'm Jessica Rogers. I am the Director of TRIO Student Support Services Programs. We are the program that works with the students who are currently enrolled. That's just the easiest way to know which one is SSS. We're located over in Hockaday Hall. I always have to give my shameless plug. You know, any students who may be eligible, please send them over. We are always willing and welcome to help. And if you should forget, your results are in a wonderful packet that has our information. I've been here since the grant was funded in 2015. And one of the things that we saw, and actually the U.S. Department of Education saw, a need for more intense services in career development. And that's what sparked for me to get trained in Mbti. The U.S. Department of Education gave us a little extra money. We jumped on it by having somebody in-house who could provide not only the tests, but provide true interpretations of them to help our students better select their majors, degree fields, certificates, so that they will stick with it and can finish. So it goes right along with our maps. And so that was just really kind of great that it happened all simultaneously. And what happened is that I did a week-long worth of intensive training with tests every day, all about the Mbti. I learned more about myself in that week than I was prepared. I'm thinking I'm just going to be reading and learning about the test, but really I was kind of in your shoes learning from that angle. So it was really good. It was really great to learn it that way, because I'm a counselor by trade. I have a degree in counseling. So to see it another way was like, wow, wait, that's not what they taught us exactly, but this is really helpful. This is really more meaningful for me. So we're just going to get started. Again, here's just my credentials. Who I am, how you contact me, in case you want to just tell me everything I told you was not true. But that's my information. And just today, we're going to just discuss things that you really should already know about yourself. We're just putting them into nice little capsules to say, this is more of your preference. This is kind of what your behavior is telling us about you. And this is how you interact in certain situations. Sometimes we don't know this is how we're reacting. This is how it looks when types work together and when they don't. Kind of when we're in conflict, not just with ourselves, but with other people too sometimes. And remember, this is just summarizing, just again, your preferences. And so a lot of times people say, I am an E, and really you prefer an E. That's just the preferred behavior. That's what's natural for you. So you'll hear me use the word preference a lot. That's just because in that wonderful training, I learned that it's a preference. It's not I am. It is because at any moment you can be anything. Which I thought that was really great, to learn that, you aren't stuck here and you must do this. But oftentimes we're told that, so that's really good. And also just confirming your best fit. So just because your results come back in this type does not mean that that's really what happened. Because what I will honestly say, I noticed that most of you took them during the day yesterday. That means you took them in the mindset that you were an employee. You took them thinking about your job. You took them thinking about how you respond to your coworkers, your supervisor, and things like that. So that means that you weren't in your natural state. So it's possible that this is not your best fit, because your best fit is how you are everywhere. Because ironically, we are the same person. We don't switch it up. We may switch duties, but not who we are. And then also just experiencing type through activities. So I do have about 2 activities that I hope I can squeeze in. Personality is really just your innate abilities, things that are just naturally within you. Just how if someone says something funny, you may make a face versus laugh. That's just something natural within you. You didn't learn that. You just naturally do that. Or if somebody maybe burps, instead of you saying, oh, are you okay? It may be another response to that. It isn't something you learned, it's just something you naturally do. And it may be weird, it may be awkward, but it's just who you are. So those are just kind of your innate things in your personality. And kind of people may belch out loud versus they don't. So that's something that you did learn. You learned that you need to keep it in and you don't do that in public. And then others have maybe did not learn that because it was open in their home or where have you. So those are just kind of some of those inborn characteristics versus the ones that we're learning based on our outside environment. Or really kind of for me, I know my characteristics, my behavior is based on how I was reared as a child. Like I always go back to the things that my parents said, and it's like they're ingrained in my head all the time. It's like, oh no, you should not do that because that is not appropriate. So, but I'm learning that, but that isn't who I am. That's not what I always typically want to do. And that's okay. And so we have the Jung theory, which you've probably heard about. Yes, because I know you're in that psychology class. So yes, it goes right along with psychology. And the Jung theory is just basically all about personality. That's what he did. He studied it, he learned it, he studied people's behaviors, where they were in different places, different types of people. You're assertive, you're aggressive, you're shy, just all of those. He studied that to help kind of that was kind of the foundation of where Myers-Briggs came from, which is really good, especially if you're in that psychology world. You're like, oh, Jung, yeah, that's what he does, Carl Jung. So, but it's basically, the MBTI is how you gather your information, how you're taking it in, how you are re-energizing yourself, or how your energy is depleted. That's what the actual assessment was trying to figure out. What it is, what depletes you, what energizes, what motivates you. Those are what the questions were. So if you think back about them, they probably seem very repetitive. That's because they want to guarantee that is what really you meant. Because sometimes, again, we try to put ourselves in roles versus thinking of ourselves as a whole. And then basically everyone has a preferred way of taking in information, utilizing energy. It's in preferred meaning it's your most natural way that you aren't even paying attention that's how you're doing it. And so that also personality type observes the 2 worlds that we live in. We have the outer world where people, things, and activities, and that is just basically, I don't want to say that because that would be jumping ahead, but basically it's the people around us, the loud environment. It could be just going to the fair, things like that. Are they enjoyable for you? And then your inner world, just your own ideas and thoughts. Just really just that. If you were pre-thinking of situations, if you're pre-developing ideas. So Jung is just saying that again, this all develops what your personality is. Preference, excuse me. So we have what's called inborn predisposition and things that go a certain way, which that goes right back to how we kind of gather in information and what is already kind of innately within us. So one of the things that my sister would probably say is that I'm innately loud. Like when I speak, this is the tone I speak at all times, typically. So if you ever see me walking by, this is probably the tone I'm going to speak to you. This is not something new that I'm doing just because I'm presenting. This is the tone. I talk to my staff in the staff meeting, so I'm innately loud. She's innately kind of soft-spoken. She has to speak up to be in my tone, where I have to consciously speak lower to speak at her tone. So those are just kind of some of the things. And so she always tells me all the time, gosh, you're so loud. I'm thinking, no, you're so soft, I can't hear you. Like, can you speak up? And so it's just, that is just who we are innately. Those are just some of our inborn preferences. And that's really what the MBTI is going to talk about. It's going to talk about nature versus nature. So I'm sorry, that's not the same word. But basically it's going to talk about your environment versus who you are internally. And so the theory just builds upon Jung's theory. MBTI does. It builds upon, because what Myers-Briggs did is they took that theory and they decided, well, we want to take it a step further. We want to know, how do we act in conflict? How do we act in very extremely exciting moments? Not just, or how do we act in work? How do we versus home? How does that relate to each other? Those types of things. So that's what it means by taking it a step further. And it describes it in opposite pairs. So that's why you have the E and the I. Why is it not the E and the P? Well, the E and the I are the two that they just decided to compare, because typically if you are this way, then there are other things that you are absolutely not preferring to do when you're in certain situations. And then the MBTI also assessment is designed to indicate our inborn preferences, which I thought that was very interesting, because typically those are not the things that we always display. What we display is what we're taught, not what is typically inborn. So I thought that was really interesting how a set of questions, which were a nice long 90, taught us about those inborn preferences. And the MBTI also, the assessment is not designed to measure skills and effects of the environment. So what it means, like, for instance, if you have I'm just gonna say if I have a student, because I work with students with disabilities, and today their disability was really presenting itself, then the MBTI would not be able to basically measure their true personality preference, because they have something in their environment that is triggering them to act outside of their inborn preference. Which I know that sounds really odd, because you're thinking the disability is them. However, it is imbalance. It is imbalance to their personality. So it will not always measure out the same for everyone. Some people say, I've taken it at this age, and this was my 4-letter preference, and then I took it at this age, and this is my 4-letter preference. And sometimes it's just more who you were more comfortable with, where you were in your life. Because if you were here in an unhappy marriage, and you were here outside of that marriage that you were unhappy in, just imagine how your personality is going to be different and how it will present itself. Because here you may be masking who you really are to make the environment happy versus your inborn needs. So those are just some of the things what they're really telling us that happens. So I'm not going to do that. So right now, as we've been talking about inborn preferences, and everyone in the other campus, I'm going to hope that you have a sheet of paper with you. If not, I have another activity that you can do. So I'm going to pass out this nice small packet. And actually, I'm going to have you turn it face down. I should turn it face down first.
Okay.
All right, and so when you turn it over, I want you to write your name in that first blank box at the top of the page. Mm-hmm. And it'll be very obvious. And as if you all have pieces of paper, just write your name and then just look up once you're finished. Okay, great. Now I want you to switch hands and write your name in the next blank box. Yep, switch hands.
That's not working.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do
Wait a minute, y'all haven't looked up yet. I'm not understanding. Y'all still writing?
Yes.
You finished? Okay, great. So tell me, how did it feel to write your name on the first box?
Yeah, good.
How would anybody else describe? Can they describe how it felt to write their name the first time? You probably did it with your eyes closed, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you wrote it the second time, how did that feel? Well, first of all, it took you longer, I'm gonna tell you that.
Yes. Yeah.
And it did, yes. Did anybody else how did it feel?
Backwards.
Yeah, concentrate more. You moved a little slower. Did it feel natural?
No.
Did it feel like something you could do with your eyes closed? Could you stay
No.
outside your box?
No.
That's what it feels like when you're operating outside of your preference. That's what it feels like when we say, something isn't right. This isn't me. I'm not being me right now. That's literally what the feeling. So what I'm gonna have you all also do is just let's fold our arms. Everybody got their arms folded? Now unfold them and fold them with the other hand on top. I don't even think I can use it. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what the inborn preference is. That's what we mean.
Here.
Inborn meaning this is your preference. This is the natural way I want my arms folded. This is how I feel comfortable. That's when I'm operating in my inborn preference behavior. This is what feels comfortable. I don't even think I can. It feels weird. Oh my goodness, it feels like I'm about to break my arms. It's just not right. So I wanted to give you all a physical example of what it feels like. So people on my other campus, if you all could, on the bottom of your page, draw yourself 4 boxes, and if you all will flip your page.
4 boxes. No.
It's 4 boxes, yes. What we're gonna do is as we go through,
Me.
I want you all to guess what your type is as we go through when we talk about the different types. So that's just basically what they are. Everybody probably remembers the E and the I, the introversion, the extroversion, the sensing and intuition, the thinking and feeling, and the judging and perceiving. Those are your different types that you're kind of like either or. And then type versus trait. Type identifies your inborn preferences. That's why we say type. Your trait is just what you have developed based on your environment. That's just really kind of the simple way to identify for these purposes. And then really your traits is played based on what you do at work. And my example is that I like supervising, but it's a lot of questions. And when I'm in a certain preference, it can be overwhelming. But it's a lot of problem solving when you're a supervisor. And that means that you are using one of your preference more than what you may use another. And so depending on your preference, that will make you feel like you're crossing your arms the wrong way. So this is just a nice little graph that just kind of shows where type theory and trait theory are and where your normal scores and things like that. But then you'll see that later in your results. All right, so introversion, extroversion are simply how we receive energy, which I know it seems like, when we've heard probably culturally in classrooms, it was those who talk a lot and those who are quiet. So I want you to embrace that because you can be either one and talk a lot and be quiet because you will be very surprised on what your results are going to probably tell you. But people who are extroverts, I don't know why I would say introvert first. They're energized by interacting with others. Probably why we think that extroverts are people who speak a lot. That's not true. Extroversion can be anyone. And let me start off with definitely the statement. We need all types to make anything work properly. You need everyone to balance ideas and balance the office. And it's really great if you are able to have a representation of almost all, if you have a large enough office, but at least a good combination. Because when you have them all in the same, that means you're all gonna have deficits in the same area. And you want somebody else who can say, yeah, maybe we shouldn't. So just keep that in mind as we go through. And then introversion people, they like to energize by opportunity to reflect. So that's why people often think that introversion preferences are people who are quiet. That's not necessarily true. They just may want to take a moment to think about what they're going to say, as opposed to being, it's not on this one, but as opposed to being, to just kind of think out loud. I think that's the right way to say for an extrovert. Extrovert may have an issue at hand and may say, hey, let me talk to you, I have a challenge. And they're going to really talk to you about the entire step of the way. I'm pretty sure we all know somebody like that who has an issue and they're saying, okay, Daisha, so they send me the email and I email them back and then no response. And I'm not really sure if that meant that they're not happy with it, but I'm really concerned because they should have emailed me back by now. However, had it been an introvert saying that, they'll just get the email and you'd never know. You recognize that? Yeah, and you're like, they're over there having an internal war inside, but externally they're just cool and calm. You don't even know. You're thinking, oh, it didn't even bother you. However, your extroversion is going to verbally say, what's going on, because they're used to socially interacting, used to verbally telling everybody what's going on, because they just operate outside. And however you're introvert, they want to reflect, they want to take a moment aside, they need to recharge, because just because they had that internal war, they need a moment to recharge their battery, because they don't want to fall apart, say the wrong thing, they don't want to think about the next steps that happen after they say it out loud. So they're just going to take a moment. I think we all could take a moment for what introverts do, but they prefer writing and communication. So if you have a staff member or coworker who is maybe your extrovert preference, they're going to send you an email and it's going to be 2 lines. However, your introvert is going to give you a nice long 10-paragraph explaining everything, because they don't want you to come back and ask them a question, because that means that they're going to have to interact more. And they want to be able to give it all to you at once, which is great. However, your extrovert's going to maybe forget, because they're ready to talk to you about it. They want to come over to my desk, let's talk about it. So those are just some of the things that you have to be respectful about. That's just the difference in the way people communicate. And we have to learn that, okay, she's getting what she needs right now, and then later I'll just send her an email on what I needed, and that's how we're going to communicate. And it's totally okay once you set up those boundaries and you recognize that that's what's happening. And then also, you need to work out ideas. That's what we're saying right there by talking. Your extroverts, they're going to work all ideas out by that. Whether it's planning a trip, outfit the next day, what they're going to eat, anything. If it's an idea, they like to talk about it. And then, of course, they're going to be socially appropriate. When it's not appropriate to talk about it, they're not. But however, you also can have that person equally balancing those preferences. Knowing when there are moments where they're actually reflecting. They need that moment of solitude. They take their lunch by themselves because they need that moment. But when they come back, they're just as chattery because they had their moment to recharge that battery, and now they're back. So you have a little bit of both. I see you two back there laughing. Y'all must know some people like that. So I'll go a little bit further on what people prefer, if they're introvert, extrovert, and preference. And so broader interests, just a variety of things, whereas your introversion may be a little bit more focused. They may have a fewer interests, fewer things such as that, because that's just what they prefer. That's all it is. However, you may meet an extrovert that has fewer interests because they may be slight in their preference. And then also they're readily take initiative in work and relationship situations. So have you ever worked with someone, because we don't work with people like this here, that the moment the problem is there, they're ready to go address it, take a moment, where's your plan? Because there was more to it. What's the backstory? They don't necessarily want to dig in, they're just ready, let's go talk to them. I don't know why that didn't work out, I need to go talk to them. And that could be sometimes your extrovert preference, just because they have a need to verbally decide on things. It has nothing to do with them not respecting the space, the rules, the culture. It's just an inborn preference that they have a need to just verbally talk about it. And sometimes they're just ready to just take that initiative in any situation, whether it's good or bad. It could be, hey, we're all gonna plan a lunch. I'm gonna be the one to tell everybody. They're just ready to go ahead and get it over with. Let's go ahead. Whereas your introvert preference is gonna say, okay, you go right ahead. Let me know, I'm ready. Whenever you are. So it's just a balance there, and they work quite well together. I see that a lot in some teams that I've worked on. And when you have those two together, they balance each other out, because you have that person who has the great ideas who will share with a few, but then you have that one that'll take it the 3 steps further that you needed to go. So that just works really well when you're in groups and teams. Any questions? Everybody know which one they are? All right, we have our sensing and intuition, which these two are really, they sound very like they might be the same, they may be close, but actually they're very different. Your sensing preference, they tend to focus on what's real, what's tangible, what's right here, not necessarily what could be. Your people with intuition, they do more things on meaning of patterns and data and what they can calculate and figure out, that type of thing. So again, they sound similar, but they can be very different. And your sensing preference, they're gonna trust experience. Over here, they're gonna trust inspiration. Like I feel inspired to, let's just take that leap. Let's take that chance. Not, I've done that several times and it didn't work. It's, I'm just gonna try it again. And I think we all know a lot of people like that. We often think of maybe our younger selves, maybe in that area. For instance, I know I moved a couple of times and didn't have jobs. I just did it. Like, oh, it'll work out. Now it's kind of like, I'm too scared. My experience has taught me don't do that. But had I taken the MBTI when I was in those moments of, I just want to try that city, I probably, would have been definitely in my, in preference for that. Okay. And so also in the sensing preference, the people tend to prefer understand ideas and theories through practical applications as opposed to your people in your in preference or intuition preference who want to clarify ideas and theories and putting them before putting them into practice, which to me are just, again, just showing you how they're just real opposites here. So I think I saw most of y'all write stuff down. So I want to make sure I'm being mindful of time. That's all. Everybody have if they are in or S preference. Okay. All right, your thinking and your feeling. So I will say it's typically not anything like a thinking and your feeling, like they want to touch you. It's not quite like that. Your T and your F are more of they analyze versus empathize. And so when I say you really need that when you're making decisions that involve our students, you need your people who are going to analyze, and then you need your people who are going to empathize. Because I can just give you a great example of, we were doing a student trip, and I said if they have not responded by this time, they will not be able to go. However, my entire staff said, but what if they didn't get the email? Sometimes emails just don't go through. We need to make sure we've got to call a few of them. And I'm thinking, absolutely not. We need the numbers now because I need to be able to budget that and send that paperwork through. No. And had I not listened to them, we wouldn't have had the large turnout that we did. So that's just a good example for me of why we need both preferences at all times. And that you always need, because I always say your people who are in your feeling preference, they're your, but what if? But why not? What about, how do you think that makes them feel? Those are your people who are asking those questions. But they're asking that in every possible way. I just don't think that's going to work because that's going to hurt our students, or that's going to make a difference in how she feels or how she acts or how they keep interacting. Like, we don't want to crush them. So those are your F preferences. However, your T preferences, they're going to be on their cause and effect reasoning. They're going to be that this is the bottom line. This is what we have to do. This is our deadline. We don't quite have time to wait for that. However, your F preference is going to just try to make sure you remember, in us not waiting, what does that really mean? So to me, they're not, the ones yes, your F preferences probably are going to pat you on the back and say, come on, you can do it. You can really wait. It's okay. They are, but your T preference over there is going to say, but the bottom line is it's time. Like, this is a matter of fact, cause and effect. If we don't do this, then this is going to happen. So just keep that. But again, you need both. And just kind of really the bottom line is that they're going to use solve problems with logic, and they're going to assess impacts of the decision on people. And I'll switch this again. So again, here's how they make decisions, which we kind of just briefly touched on. Your T, they're still reasonable. They're not stubborn. They're reasonable because they're doing that cause and effect. However, they can be seen as tough-minded, meaning that once they already have the idea in their mind or kind of what needs to happen, they're kind of stuck on that unless it can be proven otherwise. And it can be tough because if you're in your F preference strong that day, you do not understand why they're not seeing that it can hurt others, or that it's not the part of the great big picture. It's just this one incident. So they can be seen as tenderhearted, your F people. They can. And it's not a negative thing. It's just kind of how they're really making decisions. They're going to really think of how this is going to affect maybe the whole family. Like if you're in your family role, like if I do this, that means that my child won't be able to go here because I've taken this one here. So they're going to think about that as opposed to saying, well, I've already promised this one first, so that's the one who gets to go to skating. This one will just have to sit here with me and read this book. So they're not going to do that. They're going to think of everybody, how that's going to affect everybody, because that's what works best for them in their preference. That's why I said you can flop from preference to preference depending on your situation. It's which one feels most natural to you. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Everybody write down whether they're a T or an F. All right. So excuse me. Did I jump too far? Okay. So then you have your J and your P, your judging and perceiving. So it's not that you're judgmental, and it's not that you're perceiving that other people are judgmental. It's not that. It's you are really just kind of how you see the outside world, which I thought this one was really interesting. See how they're just one words? They're not the little lengthy little statements there. Your judging preference, they tend to like to follow a schedule. They organize their lives and they're very systematic. And then you have your perceiving ones where they're spontaneous, flexible. They're the ones that are kind of like how I was describing myself as a young person. Just get up and go to the city, job, just kind of ready to make it happen. Casual and open-minded. So your judging preferences are your ones that are going to be kind of who are making the schedule for the office, reminding everybody of the deadlines. They're going to be the ones that organize just not just their lives, but they're going to try to help you organize yours. And then then you're going to have your other people who are just as beneficial to the group, who are spontaneous, like you're in the middle of a meeting, y'all like deep in a discussion, and they're going, oh my goodness, I have this idea. And you're like, wait, that, your J over there is going to say, wait, that is not on the agenda. I need you to stay focused. I take it you know about that. And it will take you completely it makes you uncomfortable because you're thinking, we have a set schedule. And I think I can kind of pick out some of my J's because I think 2 people came up to me to remind me, I'm going to leave at 3. I just want you to know because I need you to know my schedule because I'm a organized person. But it's natural because that was just what you wanted to, what you needed to do because you were organized your life. You need to make sure other people are being respectful of that. Your people in your P, they probably were thinking, oh, y'all leaving at 3, but that's okay. I'm just going to slide. That's what I'm going to do. They're just like, it's okay. She'll notice I'm leaving when I'm walking out, Not being rude, just thinking, oh, it'll happen. Just let it flow. And that's fine. However, the flexibility allows for the J to be able to be in their preference because your P's over here are flexible. It does not bother them that you need that because they're flexible. They're like, you need a schedule? I'll let you get your schedule together. I'll sit over here, probably read something on my phone. Whenever you're ready for us to move on, we'll move on because they're flexible like that. They don't need that strength, that time frame or what have you. But they also don't need to interrupt you while you do it because they're flexible. They're kind of casual about it. So also right here in how they're viewing the outside world is that they adapt your P's, they adapt to change really easily. So if y'all know about Trio moves around in their offices a lot. I've had 2 offices, been in 3 locations since I've been here in 2015. So we have to be flexible over there. And that has a lot to do with other stuff, not like anything with college, but that's other stuff that our needs happen. But that was hard on some of the team because that was not an organized plan. It was just kind of one day I said, so guys, we're going to be put out for about a month. And some of their eyes were like, wait, where we're going, what's going to happen? They needed me to be able to reaffirm that we had a plan, this wasn't permanent, and what was going to happen. Now, granted, if I was in my P preference that day, I probably just said, just roll with it. We're still here. We're just going to see these students wherever we are. But that's not going to work. I needed to be able to lean on my J preference and get organized and say, this is the timeline for what's going to happen. Because that being flexible does not work in every situation, or being casual, I should say, does not work in every situation. Sometimes you have to bring order to reassure not just your team, your coworkers, but sometimes your students that this is going to work out. Because when you're helping them, advise them, get their accounts together, you can't be casual about that. That's very serious. So you have to be able to lean on both preferences. And over here, your J, which is awesome. When we're talking about a college environment, that last minute stuff, we know that never works out great. Sometimes you get those chances where, okay, it did work out. But that's not where you want to lean. So that's where your J preference is really going to be helpful for you. They're going to remind you of those deadlines in the meetings. They're going to put the deadlines on the agenda for you. They're going to email out and remind if you're on their group, this is the deadline. And that's what you need. You need those J's. However, over here, these find the last minute pressures energizing. So you have to figure out how that works for you. That's not going to work in every situation, the last minute things. However, you can figure out how that works for you. You'll figure out your to-do list and you'll prioritize it on what you need to do first because they have the deadline and what you can wait to last minute to still feed into your P preference. All right, so everybody has their basically guess type. I'm not gonna say estimated, that's. And so just to remind you that there are 16 different personality types, and we all, at any moment, could possibly be any of them. And that just means that you could be a slight. That means that you were not strong in your preference and you could just be slight in it. So that's why we say at any moment you could be any of them. All right. So right here, I'm going to pass out your assessment.
What you got?
I'm an introvert.
Well, it's okay. I'm an introvert, still
What are
talking.
your four letters?
Isn't really what you mean.
INST, totally opposite of me.
I'm an INFP.
INF what?
I'm gonna give you a moment so you can look and see what your type is. And what this is, and just as you're looking, I just want you to know this is called your best fit, meaning this is the one that you how you consistently answered your questions. And so what you're looking at is, did she say Ann was in there? Did Ann say her name? No. Ann, are you over there?
Ann's here.
I'm here.
Okay. Just in case you have, do you mind if I use your assessment as what I hold up?
Go ahead, I don't care.
Thank you. So what I have here is, just a cover page, just because assessments are to be private unless you have someone that agrees to let someone else see. And so the second page, and you are FP.
That's exactly what I wrote down on this paper.
Oh, awesome. So what you have is just right here. It's just telling you what's your preference. It just gives you the name of it. And this is just a brief summary of how your preferences are working together, what this should say about you. And then on your next page, here is just talking a little bit more about what we went over and just giving you a little bit more. It just highlighted it, just put it in a nice little graph for you. But this is what we've already went over. And then this next one, which to me is one of the more important ones, it talks about how your type works in conflict, how it works when your type is in a happy place. And I know it isn't telling you that, so I'm gonna dissect it for you in a minute. And then I'm gonna flip really quickly to the next page, which is the mental processes, which I thought was really interesting because it gave you basically in the order in which your type likes to work based on how you answer the questions, which it's just a fun way of looking at your 4-letter result. And then here, this to me is the most important page, in which all of you do have. It clarifies your results. So in other words, it's telling you how strong you scored on your test or assessment. I'm sorry. And so, are you laughing because yours really strong over there? And so, for some people, you may be what's called a slight, meaning that you may have been reared one way, but your preference is to be another way. Or you're like, let's say you joined the military, that forces you to act one way, but your preference is to be another way. And so therefore, that's what a slight would be. If you are in moderate, means that you're getting closer to clear. And it just means that, again, sometimes you may still flop back and forth, depending on situations, because your preference may be another way, but you have learned to be okay in acting in another. And then if you are absolutely clear and very clear, it just means that you are acting in the way that your preferences want you to act. You are totally in what your inborn preferences are asking of you. You don't feel uncomfortable with some of the things that were required of you. So that's good. None of this is bad. None of it is like, ooh, you're about to change jobs. It is just simply telling you about who you are and how your preferences are acting within each other. So what I have also in your book here, in your folder, which all of you all will have sent to you in our office mail. It breaks down a little bit further about your types. It tells you about characteristics. So it just tells you some traits that just kind of go along with your 4-letter preference. And then how others may see you, which I thought was really good because we may not always be aware that others see us in certain lights or just in any way possible. And the areas of potential growth, that right there is what I thought was really helpful when we were being trained, because it taught me when I'm in conflict with my type preference that this is basically how I act when I'm upset. And I thought that was pretty interesting because I was like, yep, that's me. That's all me right there. So I thought that was really helpful. And it's just kind of, if you've ever taken a psychology class, and it's okay if you haven't, it tells you, one of our theorists says that if you, Freud, I believe, if you don't successfully move out of certain stages of growth, you kind of stay there. You don't skip it. So if you don't move out of your adolescent stage, as we know some people who still act like teens and they're full-grown adults because they didn't successfully transition out of a stage of growth. So they're still there until they successfully move. It's kind of like school used to be. So it's just like that in your type. If you don't develop your feeling type, but you are a feeling preference, then you're kind of still very weak in that area. You're not displaying it fully, but you're not displaying the other side either. So I thought that was interesting piece of information. So I'll give you 30 more seconds to just kind of keep looking because I know it's really interesting. And one of the things that you will notice within reading that is that it will say potential blind spots. So they use really positive words versus saying when you're angry or things like that. So in other words, when you are being emotional, we'll call it that, then you won't notice that you're being combative with your other preferences because you're in an emotional state. So remember we said this works only when you're in kind of your natural state. And typically high emotions is not a natural state, typically for people. Sorry, I just noticed the screen over there changed. And I was like, wait, what? Okay, but so as you're looking at your best fit, your reported type plus your best fit, it just kind of, if they were different, then it just means that combined they equal your best fit. Because what you did on your test or assessment there is what you reported to the assessment, what you did. But what you listened to and you really thought about who you were and everything, then that was what you felt was your best type. So then putting it together would be a best fit. Would you say yours was dead on?
There was one letter off.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah, but it just, the one that was off is the one that I was the least clear on my.
Ah.
So it makes sense.
Yeah. Anybody else like that? Like one letter off, but you weren't that clear in it when you read through. It's pretty cool. So also what that could mean, so it means if you were a slight, again, like I was saying, most people who meet me or kind of get to know me probably guess that I'm an extrovert. Like totally all in it. I'm only slight an extrovert. I really do lean on, I need moments to re-energize. I don't answer my phone after 8 o'clock at night. I refuse to talk to people at night because I need moments to sit back, reflect, and pull it back together with a high energy person. So it's funny that because I walked around for a long time saying I am a full preference extrovert. You couldn't tell me anything different, but it's not true. The older I get, the more I see. I enjoy my rides home, sometimes in silence because I need moments just to bring it back together to calm my thoughts. So it's true, and I realized that my mother was a full extrovert, and I mimicked her a lot. I was the oldest girl, so I could see where I was picking up traits, but I realized that what I preferred was not being an extrovert. I prefer not being the one talking all the time, and so that was interesting. That's what I learned really big about myself. Is that, wow, who knew? I thought I was all the way an extrovert. So again, this is just the type table again, just to remind you that they all fall under the same premise. I'm hitting it too fast. All right. So basically, Isabella Myers, her goal for this was for you to become aware of the differences and acknowledge the value of the differences, that everybody is needed, every type is needed, and that they all work together differently. And that the new behaviors, we seek out people who are different from us and to incorporate different perspectives into our interactions, which is really, I thought, nice that that's what she was thinking about when she was making the Myers-Briggs, and that's what she was really feeling that would help just people in general work together. And then to capture the learnings, the insights to gain insights about yourself and other people that have opposite preferences, which is really helpful. Again, when you're working with a group, it's really nice to know what their preferences are. And I always pick on my team, so if you know my team, they know I pick on them all the time. We have one really strong I in our office, and I know with all those E's floating around, it drives their I bananas. They often take breaks. They often, they need moments of solitude, but now that I know that, I can respect it, because before I'm like, oh my God, like they never want to sit at their desk. What's happening here? But that was me trying to be that true E coming out. And that, but that wasn't the case. That was just a need of, I need to re-energize. Y'all were depleting me quickly. So that I thought that was great that we had that understanding early on. But also the biggest thing is right here is that when my spontaneous side of me pops out, I have to recognize that my team isn't like that, and that does not work well for everybody. And so therefore, I have to find ways to still meet that preference, but not impose it on others. So understanding extroversion and introversion, we're going to, if y'all don't mind, can I ask who are my I's and who are my E's? And that goes the same for, unfortunately I can't see you guys, but that goes the same for you all. If you could split up in a group of I's and E's, that would be good. Or are you all E's over here? Are you an E?
No.
We're E's.
So am I.
Good eyes.
We're I's.
See, it's split.
Do y'all have different I's and E's over there?
Yeah.
So what we're gonna do in our group project, because I like to call it that, is really just try to think of, right here what it says, think of questions that you would like to ask the opposite preference. And that's any question that's appropriate for this environment. And we're gonna just say 3. Did you guys hear me?
I just don't know how they cannot.
Yes.
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 Select a spokesperson, and we'll go from there. Now, you gotta start somewhere. I know. And do you need me? I can be an E too. Okay. All right. We're gonna give you like a minute, 2 minutes.
Not ours.
so now
They're hell of a
I'm gonna have your spokesperson kind of report out or ask the question of the other group. So since you all are a larger group, this can be like 2 or more questions than we may have. So if we can get the ayes, because I just want to make you uncomfortable, to ask the question of the E's, that would be great. And your question is simply something that you want to know so you can better understand them better.
Let's see what it is.
You have a question?
Mhm.
Okay.
Do you ever feel like you need a long time?
Need a long time?
Yeah.
Every day. Yes. I'm a long person. Me too.
Sometimes.
Extrovert doesn't mean you like people. I don't either. But extrovert doesn't mean that you like people. It doesn't.
I mean,
It means you can
I can
interact.
be by myself.
I agree. Totally. I watch my TV when I need downtime.
Be by
Something that
myself.
isn't like any emotion or thoughts. Just something really
Whatever the situation.
like cheesy. So when I watch it, every time it comes on TV. So, but I'll do something like that. That one of them.
An additional question.
Our question was, well, I don't think it's why would you rather, but do you rather when it comes to solving problems.
Don't be honest, don't
Trust yourself and a lot more than I trust myself. Because I'd rather the family and people.
No, but
I
now.
don't
Never trust myself, I hear.
I seen your answer, it is
So,
already.
would y'all say that's what it is? Okay, that's what I was gonna say. So now you can explain it. I didn't think
It is
so.
for me.
It is for you. Oh, you trust yourself that much? So,
Well, that's what I mean, it's like, I always the opposite, where I would rather do it.
Well, you answer the question, baby. And he's a happy
Yeah.
camper.
Like,
He
it's
will
just stuff
always
where you're like,
Okay, problem solved, thank you,
do it. You're
Lydia.
welcome.
it'll be bad.
He will be a happy man when you go on.
I don't like group projects.
His day is planned and he's got it ready.
I don't like relying on others to,
I'm gonna play on Thursday nights.
Like, I-
And it's good.
A roasted potato, and it's good, so like, so get that.
I laugh because that's me in high school. I was always able to convince my teacher that I should be.
Yeah, he's a big
He
girl.
is, yes.
Like,
So he's getting a night off tonight.
it's fine here.
Yeah.
Fine, you can be a one woman.
Okay, what's your question? You got a question, let's keep this. I don't know this.
But I agree that I don't like group projects.
What makes it hard for you to make a decision?
Not everybody else want, not,
Can I
not
say?
introvert, not extrovert, not the ease, but I'm just saying in general.
You know, it's hard for me to make a
Yes.
decision. I try to think about the different things that each decision impacts.
whereas,
trusting others is hard.
Well, there you go.
and I'm not
So
gonna
you
say
can
it's like,
think of all this stuff out here.
They are.
Yes, it is. It's like a giant algorithm.
responses.
Well, that's my job, right?
And
That's not on
that's-
the
I know, if I do these,
You
it's
know.
gonna happen.
I do it. So there you go. Now you
It's a
just
giant
told me how I
algorithm.
can.
Moment.
I think
It's messed up.
That's why you gotta think about everything.
If you make your decisions, as long as there's just so much to consider. Oh, yeah, she makes herself crazy doing that.
They slapped me in the
And
face.
see, and that's why,
That's your
you know, like,
come out.
I live.
Yes. That's your yes.
There's been a few people slap me in the face.
Oh,
I am
You see
not.
what I'm saying?
Big goofy mom.
So yes, I would say definitely, that I lean on my E preference with that is that I like to talk it out. Like, that is me all day, and again, probably drive me crazy with that, but I need to do that. Cause I like the reassurance that it's the right direction, cause I don't like to redo.
No, I don't.
No. Please, echo,
I don't have
that's,
to be on the
She
go,
is a good one.
but I'd like to know that I'm gonna be going somewhere soon.
hey, sorry.